Hi, I'm Will Hurlbutt, and this is Isaac Volteline. We're summer interns for Wild and Scenic Westfield River. We're here on the Wild and Scenic Center Pond Brook in Beckett, Mass. We're here removing a number of invasive species, including Multiflora rose. And what's good to keep in mind before you begin removing these plants is that you have permission from private landowners. And also, if you're working near a wetland, you want to make sure you have permission from the Conservation Commission within the town or city that you're working in. I'm going to pass this off to Isaac, and he's going to show you how we remove these.
First, what you want to get is some gloves. These gloves go a little bit higher in the forearm. These are better for protecting, because when you're reaching into the bush, this has a lot of thorns and stuff on it. So when you're reaching in, this is going to help protect your forearms really well. But any good, thick gardening gloves would be good too. I wear a hat too to protect my head in case I'm dipping my head in there. And I also wear long pants, because when I'm stepping in the bush, I don't want to get my legs all scratched up wearing shorts. I also have a pair of protective glasses, because also when I'm putting my face in, I do not want thorns in my eyes, because that's not really the best feeling. So first, we're going to look at all the native plants that are surrounding this Multiflora bush. As you can see, this tree is going to get choked out by the Multiflora as it continues to grow and expand. Right here, we're not just looking at one Multiflora bush, we're looking at actually 5 different projections, and this could be caused by one major stem that goes in and resprouts, or it could be multiple different bushes coming from the seeds as it flowers. We're going to be working on this bush today. So in the middle here, we can identify some native plants. We have a fern, we have a maple, we also have some spirea, so we have to make sure we're careful in the removing process because we don't want to hurt those. So what we're going to do here with Will's help is we're going to start wrapping the plant. What we found is with the thorns, it can actually attach to itself almost like Velcro. And if you crunch it down into a little ball and leave one of the longest branches separating it from the native plants because it likes to hold on to those, go ahead and wrap that around the side to me. As you start to separate the native plants out, you can kind of look closer and you can see that the Multiflora actually has a little bit of a gap from the other plants. And then if you start to look closer, this branch right here isn't actually attached to anything. It's its own little branch sprouting up from the ground. But since this larger bush is here, you can only assume that one of the roots has gone out, spread throughout the ground, and resprouted to form this other separating plant. Since we've moved all the native plants away and we have some wiggle room, we're going to go ahead and we're going to clip the branches of the Multiflora, leaving about 6 to 8 inches so you have some grip when you're trying to remove it. And this is just going to prevent all the thorns and stuff from grabbing at your arms when you're trying to actually do the removal process. If I could see those clippers well. Perfect. These are ratcheting clippers. They're pretty fancy. So instead of just going through and grabbing and pushing once, you use the green lever as a ratchet, and you can see it kind of grips down, and it's very helpful for grabbing on and biting through the thicker branches of the Multiflora. This is what it's going to look like after you finish cutting the branches off. So as you can see, since we wrapped it, it stays in a nice tight bundle, which is going to be very helpful when we're going to remove it. I'm going to hand this off to Will. And then what I have here is just a simple stick. Instead of going ahead and grabbing and moving all the branches out in one, you can actually use a stick to push out in one. It's going to be nicer, obviously, if you have a little bit longer one, you can get more out of the way. But if you put it on the ground and use other plants to tuck it in, you'll see it'll stay there, and it's going to help push this spirea out of the way and keep it protected when we're actually doing the removal process. I'm going to start by loosening up the soil. So this is a little bit bigger bush, so I'm come about 6 to 8 inches out. And I'm just going to step in. As you can see, I haven't really hit the bush yet. But then as I start to wiggle it back, you're going to start to see it move, which means that we're starting to get at the root system, starting to loosen it up, which is going to make the polar bear much easier and much cleaner upon removal. Our goal for the removal process is to remove as many roots as possible. As I was showing you before, any root system can resprout and create another plant. So the less roots that you remove, the more often you're going to have to come back and check the area. And I'm not going to be digging up. It's going to be more the same thing with the shovel of loosening up the soil. And what the pointy end is better for is if you have a rockier soil, sometimes it's harder to break through with this side. So if you use the pointy end, it's still going to get through and then you're still going to be able to lift up, and as you lift up, you're going to see the root system start to move, and you're going to see the plant start to loosen up. After we loosen up the soil, we're going to use our polar bear here. It has a mouth right here, which opens and closes. I'm going to grab this bundle right here, and then Will's going to step on this bottom paddle right here. And as he pulls back on the lever, you're going to see the teeth start to engage, which is going to bite the bark. And the more he pulls, it's going to start to pull the roots out of the ground. And he's going to start doing it slowly, because the harder you pull and the faster you pull, it's going to be more likely of a breakage. And you'll see this whole long root just got pulled up by it. That's going to save us a lot of digging and a lot of time. Over here, this is another root branching out. And as you can see, this is that spirea plant I was talking about. So it's right next to the multiflora, and when I wiggle it, it seems to wiggle too. So we're thinking that the root systems of both of these are kind of intertwined. That's what happens with the multiflora. It tends to take over. We're going to pull it with the polar bear, and we're going to see whether it just comes up by itself. But if both of them come up, that's perfectly fine. We're just going to have to put the spirea to the side, and we're going to replant it afterwards. So let's bring that over here. Put that right around. Go ahead, Will. Nice. Coming up nicely. Perfect. It came up nicely. The spirea stayed intact. We didn't have to replant it. It's okay if it comes up too, as long as you just put it to the side and replant it afterwards. But this one came up clean and worked out perfectly. This one here, you can see we have the gathering of stems. Instead of just putting one in, we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab on this larger clump here. So what's nice about the polar bear is it has adjustable steps, so that way you can open the teeth larger if you need, but we have it on the middle step and it seems to be working fine, so we're going to go ahead and pull on that. And you're going to slowly start to do it. Nice. Since it came up all the way on this side, we're going to go ahead, put this back down, and then we're going to pull from the other side because it's only attached on this side over here. So pulling it from the opposite side is going to allow the root systems on this side to pull up as well. Now pulling from the other side, we're going to grab this whole clump here. And he's going to start to pull, and it should come free on the other side. All right, so as you can see, only part of the plant came up, but it came up with the root system as well, which is good. So it looks like we had a little bit of a breakage. As you can see, we still have these two in here, but we're going to go ahead and do the same thing, pull from this side on both of these, and hopefully they come up cleanly as well. Nice. Perfect. There we go.
Stop. Don't pull anymore. Come forward. Okay, let's switch. Pull the polar bear down here.
After we finish removing, as you can see, we have a little bit of a disturbance here, but we have the stick that we placed to help hold back our native species. We're going to go ahead and stand back everything up. Make it look how it was when we came in, because we want to leave the smallest footprint we can. And then this exposed soil here, we're going to go ahead, see we have some dead straw and plants around. We're gonna go ahead and brush that back over. After we finish restoring the area, you can see we've brushed all the grass over. And then you can take a step back, look at all the things we saved. Got our spirea here. And then, so the Multiflora can produce upwards of 1,700 seeds per plant. So you can imagine this whole area would be infested. There would be no raspberries, no blackberries, no other native plants. All we'd have would be pricky Multiflora. And then we're gonna come over and we're gonna reward ourselves with some blackberries. After we remove the Multiflora, the branches tend to spread out, take up a lot of room. They don't really condense very well. So when we wrap it up like this, it's gonna help compact our bundle. So right here, we have a ton of multi-rows, clearly. It's all broken up, compacted like that. We wrapped it, each individual bundle. The roots we can't really wrap because it's a root, has nothing to hold on to itself. And we put it in these piles. So this pile is actually on a tarp right now, but we try to put it in the exact spot where the bush was, so it's not killing other plants and vegetation, so it's not creating those brown dead patches. If there are areas where the Multiflora is on top of other native plant vegetation, we'll create these little areas that are lifted above the ground. We'll use sticks and branches to kind of create almost like a table, and we'll put it on top of the branches and it'll be hanging from the ground, so that way the vegetation underneath can breathe and it has air and it's not being suffocated by the obviously decaying mass on top of it. We just pile them up, try to keep them as condensed in as small of an area as possible. When we use the chipper, it's very beneficial because it helps to supply that organic material back into the ground. In the winter, we recommend a burn if you don't have a chipper because it's safe. It's not going to cause other fires in other areas. When we put our Multiflora in these bundles, we check it and monitor it to make sure that there's no growth and no green within the pile. If there is any green within the pile, what we're going to do is we're going to rotate it because the growth will tend to be at the bottom. So that green part at the bottom will continue to grow, and we don't want that to replant and create a new plant in the ground. So we're going to actually flip our bundle 180 degrees so that all the growth that was on the bottom is going to be on top, and we're going to give that a chance to dry out. If you don't have access to a chipper and are unsure how to get rid of your Multiflora piles, do some experimentation on your own. We are doing stuff based on things that have worked well for us and for people in the past, so the chipping and fires have worked for us. But we don't know, there could be better techniques out there, so do some experimentation, let us know.